starts off CNN 10 today. My name is Carl Azus. It's great to see you this September 5th. First, we're taking you to the Eastern Asian country of Japan, which has just weathered its strongest typhoon in decades. Japanese public broadcast company NHK reports that at least 6 people have died and 160 have been injured since Typhoon Jebi made landfall on Tuesday. It hit the southern part of the island nation as the equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane. Before it made landfall, Jebi had sustained wind speeds of 87 miles per hour. It soaked some parts of Japan with 20 inches of rain, threatening widespread flooding. It pushed ocean water ashore in a storm surge, and it lashed buildings with rain and wind strong enough to rip off roofs. Hundreds of flights were canceled in the region. 14,000 people were moved to refuge zones like school gyms and town halls. And a tanker ship was blown from its anchorage at sea into a bridge in southern Japan. Though 11 crew members were aboard at the time, no one was hurt. In the Gulf of Mexico, a tropical storm named Gordon was spinning its way toward Mississippi Tuesday night, and forecasters expected it would develop into a hurricane before it made landfall with sustained winds of at least 74 miles per hour. Gordon's storm surge was expected to be as high as 3 to 5 feet above sea level. States of emergency were declared in Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. That can speed up funding and aid to those who need it. And while people near the beaches and coastal rivers of those states made preparations for the storm, the National Hurricane Center said heavy rain could be expected from the Florida Panhandle all the way to southern Arkansas.
Typhoons are hurricanes, are cyclones. They are the same thing, just in different oceans. A lot like a hot cake is a flapjack, is a pancake, is a short stack. If you are west of the dateline, so west of Hawaii, north of the equator, you're a typhoon. If you're in the Atlantic or the Pacific, around America, you are a hurricane. And if you're around the Indian Ocean or in the southern hemisphere, you're a cyclone. So it's not out of the question for a hurricane to become a typhoon if it moves over the dateline. In fact, after crossing the international dateline, Hurricane Genevieve turned into Typhoon Genevieve a few years ago.
There are currently 8 sitting justices at the U.S. Supreme Court. One retired this summer, and Senate hearings are entering their second day Wednesday for President Donald Trump's choice to fill the vacancy. The nominee is Brett Kavanaugh. He's currently a U.S. Court of Appeals judge. His first day of hearings was yesterday, and it got off to a tense start. Some protesters were escorted out of the room for shouting as the hearing began. There were also attempts by Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee to interrupt and postpone the hearing. Some said they wanted more time to review 42,000 documents related to Judge Kavanaugh that were released the night before the hearing. Republicans said more than 500,000 documents had already been released before then. And with the U.S. midterm elections scheduled for November 6th, some Democrats have indicated they want to slow down these proceedings until after the elections take place, while Republicans have signaled they want to get Judge Kavanaugh confirmed to the High Court before the elections. Analysts expect that Judge Kavanaugh's nomination will move forward as scheduled despite yesterday's delays. The U.S. Constitution doesn't specify how many justices need to serve in the High Court, and the actual number of them fluctuated until Congress set the number at 9. That happened in 1869, and it's been that way ever since. 10-second trivia. Which of these African nations, whose capital is Gaborone, is located between Namibia and Zimbabwe? Angola, Mozambique, Zambia, or Botswana? In southern Africa, only Botswana lies directly between Namibia and Zimbabwe. Botswana is home to the largest elephant population on the African continent. There are an estimated 130,000 of the animals there. In nearby countries like Angola and Zambia, elephants have been heavily poached, illegally hunted for their ivory tusks, which are tremendously valuable on the black market. But Botswana used to be a place of relative safety for elephants. The last time the conservation group Elephants Without Borders audited northern Botswana in 2014, it found 9 elephant carcasses. In its most recent survey, it found 90.
Getting ready to fly in Botswana's far north. Elephant ecologist Mike Chase has spent years counting savanna elephant from the sky.
Never before have we ever conducted a standardized survey for African elephants at a continental scale.
All right, start counting. Nice speed, nice height. Well done, Tammy.
Hundreds of aircrew counted elephants in 18 countries across the continent over 2 years.
Elephant 7. 7 elephants, right?
For 3 hours a day, they flew 10-minute transects at a time, flying the distance to the moon and then some. Their results more shocking than anyone imagined.
Flying over areas where elephants historically occurred, but are no longer present in these habitats.
Killed for their ivory, in 7 short years up to 2014, elephant numbers dropped by a staggering amount, almost 1/3. Across Africa, their numbers are crashing. If nothing changes, the elephant population will halve in less than a decade. In some areas, they will go extinct.
It's incredibly disheartening because I know that historically these ecosystems supported many thousands of elephants compared to the few hundreds or tens of elephants. Some landscapes we saw more dead elephants than live elephants.
Botswana is one of the last strongholds of elephant, but now the poaching wars are on its doorstep.
Now it seems like there's a disturbing uptick in the poaching on the borders of Botswana and Namibia.
I don't think anybody in the world has seen the number of dead elephants that I've seen over the last 2 years at the Great Elephant Census. And for me, this becomes a lot more personal. It's at home. And, I've often been asked if I'm optimistic or pessimistic about the future of African elephants. And on days like today, I feel that we are failing elephants. I thought Botswana had long eluded the ivory wars, but all evidence to the contrary.
We will continue to checkpoint 2.
To fight the war, Botswana has mobilized the army, with more than 700 troops guarding its northern border. Patrols spend days in the bush on foot. They're up against a sophisticated enemy.
So they're looking for any sign of poachers. If they come across them, they're often highly organized groups of about 12 people. 2 of them could be shooters often, and those shooters are frequently foreign special forces.
Slowly, slowly.
Mike Chase's research proves that if we can't protect elephants, they will learn to protect themselves.
So you can hear him snoring. Is it a he or a she?
He's in his prime, about 30 to 35 years of age, and it's these young bulls that have the propensity to move dramatic distances and map their transboundary conservation corridors.
But their satellite tracking shows that the elephants use incredible levels of intelligence to avoid poaching hotspots in neighboring countries, retreating to the relative safety within Botswana.
We're using this technology to safeguard and protect elephants, to find them quickly and respond.
It's quite incredible being this close to this animal.
It is. It certainly is.
We called this bull Promise, for the promise that Mike Chase has made to save this magnificent species.
The mayoral race in Idlewild, California has gone to the dogs. This is Maximus Mighty Dog Mueller II, so you can see why they just call him Max. He's not only a golden retriever, he's the mayor. And while he just sits around, gets treats, and lets people pet him, the office is run by his chief of staff, his owner. Idlewild has had pets for mayors since 2012. Residents have to pay $1 to vote, and the election raises money for animal rescue, though we're sure a few bucks find their way to pet projects. Now, we're not sure who leads as majority or minority whippet, who heads up important debarkments like pugs and recreation, or if any of this is even beagle. But we'll bet security's provided by a boxer, transportation's provided by a greyhound, and bureaucracy's probably held up by a terrier. I'm Carl Azuz.